The latest addition to the European football calendar is the Europa Conference League, UEFA's third-tier competition which sits below the Europa League and the Champions League. This new competition is designed to offer European football to more clubs across the continent, with 32 teams set to enter at the group stage. Naturally, there will be less prestige and less money involved compared to the other two competitions, but how much less? How do the projected figures for the conference compare to those of the Europa League? And how do both of these competitions compare to the financial behemoth that is the Champions League? We've got all the details for you right here. The Champions League brings in the most revenue out of all three competitions. In fact, it's by far the biggest earner. During the 2018-19 season, the most recent full season available for data, the Champions League generated over 2.3 billion euros from all revenue streams. That was comprised of just shy of 1.3 billion from market and broadcast revenues, around 425 million from commercial deals, and almost 400 million from ticket sales. The group stage alone pulled in nearly 700 million euros. The final has historically been the most lucrative match of the year. For example, in 2016, Real Madrid's win over Atletico Madrid in the San Siro generated over 80 million euros. To put that into context, the Europa League in the same season brought in just over 600 million euros. That meant the Champions League was generating more than 3 times as much money as its little brother. Broadcast revenues made up over half of the Europa League's earnings, with commercial and matchday revenues making up a quarter each. As you can see, there's a huge difference between the top two competitions. But how does the proposed conference shape up? Well, the preliminary financial breakdown looks pretty promising. According to UEFA's research, the total revenues are projected to reach 330 million euros in the first season, with this rising to 500 million euros once the competition is fully established. That would mean that the conference would initially pull in about a fifth of the Champions League as total revenue, though this would rise to closer to a third. Of course, this is still significantly lower than the Europa League's total revenue, but it's worth remembering that the conference is intended to eventually feature 32 teams, meaning each team would earn around 15.6 million euros in the competition's inaugural season, rising to around 25 million euros when the competition is fully established. To put that into perspective, that would be worth around a quarter of what the lowest-ranked team in last season, ex-Europa League, FC Krasnodar, earned in their campaign. That might sound like a lot of money. However, it's also worth remembering that a place in Europe means a lot more than just participation in one of these 4 competitions. Teams who qualify for the Champions League group stages can expect to play 5 games there before entering the Europa League group stages. Should they progress through that group, they'll then face 2 knockout rounds before the quarterfinals. So a long season in Europe could actually bring in a hell of a lot more money. Now we need to talk about prize money. The amounts given to clubs for simply taking part in the various competitions have increased steadily over the years, although not always in line with inflation. That being said, considering the lower number of matches required to win the trophy, the current prize money for the Europa Conference League looks reasonable. Each club who enters the groups will receive at least 500,000 euros just for taking part. This will rise by 50,000 euros should they win their group, with a further 50,000 awarded for each win during the group stage. The knockout rounds then award an additional 100,000 euros per game won, while the semi-finalists will each receive 250,000 euros. As for the finalists, they'll receive 500,000 euros regardless of the result, and then an additional 1 million if they go on to win the game. It's a similar story for the Europa League, except the group stage prize money is higher, as are the knockout round amounts. Obviously, the Champions League has even higher prize money. While a win in the group stage is worth 2 million euros, Winning your group will net you 10 million. It's a big jump from the other competitions, as you can probably tell. But realistically, no matter how well you perform in the group stage or the early knockout rounds, you aren't going to make that much money. Only the semifinalists and finalists can expect to really make any significant amount of cash. If we look at the most recent winners of each competition, then we can get a clear idea of how much money they made throughout their whole journey. Villarreal's run to winning the Europa League saw them play a total of 15 games, 6 in the group stage, 4 in the knockout rounds, 4 in the quarterfinals and semis, and then 1 in the final. This brought in a total of 23.7 million euros in prize money, with the Spaniards finishing third in their Champions League group before moving into the Europa League. This meant they played an extra 6 matches in the Champions League, earning them an extra 16 million euros in prize money. They also made some money from the 16th round playoff. All in all, Villarreal earned a total of 39.7 million euros in prize money from their European campaign, with the final bringing in 12.5 million alone. On top of that, though, they'll have earned revenue from broadcasting, commercial activities, and matchday income. But it's very difficult to break down exactly how much each of these individual streams were worth. Unfortunately, we don't have access to detailed financial reports for all of these clubs, so we can't break things down as accurately as we'd like. What we do know is that Villarreal had a turnover of 180 million euros in 2020, of which 35 million came from European competition participation, with the other 145 million coming from elsewhere, including broadcasting rights, player sales, commercial, and matchday income. Considering that the 2020-21 season was disrupted by COVID-19, though, it's likely that the money earned from European competitions is higher than usual as a proportion of turnover. Let's look at a Champions League winner instead. Real Madrid's 2021-22 campaign saw them play 12 games in the group stage and knockout rounds before the semifinals, where they faced Manchester City. This brought in 68.3 million euros in prize money, with the final bringing in an additional 11 million. Although they didn't win the final, they did earn another 5 million from the Super Cup, taking their total prize money earnings to 84.3 million euros. Real Madrid, though, didn't start their European journey in the group stage. Instead, they entered in the round of 16 after topping their Champions League group. This meant they played an extra 6 matches in the Champions League, earning them an additional 32 million euros. When we add in the 84.3 million from the Europa League, that means Real Madrid made a total of 116.3 million euros in prize money from their European campaigns. When it comes to overall revenue, though, Real Madrid's European campaign brought in 286.8 million euros, meaning that just over 40% of their revenue came from European competitions. This revenue stream is incredibly important for the Spanish Giants, and they're hoping to make even more money in the near future after agreeing a new deal with Adidas to supply their kit until 2027, with reports suggesting the deal is worth around 1 billion euros. While the Europa Conference League doesn't come close to the financial rewards offered by the Champions League or even the Europa League, it is worth remembering that it's a relatively new competition. Over time, the prize money is expected to increase along with the broadcasting and commercial revenues. Eventually, it may even overtake the Europa League, although this seems unlikely.